The Gremlins are coming. Don't get him wet. Keep him out of the bright light, and never feed him after midnight. This is Slashers, a podcast about movies and more for those who love horror. My name is Jake, and with me for the first time exclusively, without any other people vying for my attention and affection, is Jim Turn. My good friend, pal, and confidant. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm good.
Why don't you say hello to all the mutant goons from beyond? Just because you're stepping into Brian's shoes, you have to do this now.
Hello, mutant goons from beyond.
Yeah, there we go. Lately, he's been really ornery with the audience. It's crazy. He's that bad boy.
Hostile.
A little James Dean action going on there. Rebel without a cause, but with a thick old dick and a beard, right?
At least one of those.
Yeah. There we go. So we are doing Gremlins this week, which, Jesus Christ, there's so much great content out there about this film. Like, it's one of those ones where, I mean, we've talked about this, the conundrum of the show. If we do movies that are already great, there's already so much stuff out there that's like hard to compete with. And if you do things that are too obscure, people are like, well, fuck that. I'm not going to go. Like, the pinnacle for me is Mr. Vampire. I can't justify spending $50 to get a Blu-ray of it. So here's open challenge. If you're a fan of this show, you send us a fucking copy of Mr. Vampire on Blu-ray, or I will make an episode of this show and you will be a guest. I guarantee it. But it will not be on Mr. Vampire because nobody can fucking find it. That's my diatribe. So on this one, you know.
It's such a tease, too, because every time we try to find it, there's something that looks like it, and it's some other, like a remake or number 2, but it's called number 1.
It drives me fucking crazy.
And I can't tell the difference because I don't know what the fuck it's about anyways.
Yeah, the last 2 times I went on eBay and tried to find it, I ended up using, Google's translator, which is developed from WordLens, where I just look and make it translate and go, oh, well, I know this is wrong. You've clearly mislabeled this product to try and extort me for money. I don't appreciate it.
And the only one on YouTube labeled or called Mr. Vampire is not Mr. Vampire.
It is not. The third one, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So, yeah, that's an open challenge. But my point is, this movie is great. It is hugely popular. And so one of the things I really wanted to touch on was fan films and other things. Now, Jim, you've never seen the sequel to this, right?
I don't believe so.
So that actually benefits this episode and our listeners because I actually like the second one more than the first. And a lot of people would think that's blasphemy. It's not like a huge margin. It's not like A Country Mile or anything like that. Several factors go into it, one of which is the holiday theme. When Christmas movies, I could watch Independence Day with William Esquire Smith, on any day. But Christmas movies, for some reason, I can't watch outside of like the winter season. Is that weird?
No, it's not weird.
Yeah, like Batman Returns. I watched that probably 1/1 trillionth the amount of times I've seen Batman 89 because it's got the Christmas theme. So even though I was a big Batman nerd, couldn't do it.
I think there's like a feeling that just holiday movies just have.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, it could be a small part of the movie. It just kind of sets a tone.
I truly think I've seen Die Hard with a Vengeance probably more times than Die Hard because I only watch Die Hard Christmas times.
Right.
So my point being, do you find the Christmas theme distracting in this film at all?
There's a little.
Yeah.
Because it's super heavy. It's so integral to. It's not really integral. It's just there over everything.
Yeah, and then there's the weird monologue that Kate gives, which I think is just. I think that's probably one of the best moments of the movie, and it's got some weird history with it. So we'll get into that. But yeah, so in terms of other Gremlins media, gremlin is a word that comes from gremlin, which is to vex. Did you know that?
I did not.
Now, Roald Dahl, the guy who did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the big fucking giant, he had done a book called The Gremlins in 1943, which was almost a Disney film. You know what else was almost a Disney film? The Beastmaster. I shit you not. Don Cascarelli talks about it in his book, and it's awesome that he tried to market it to Disney. I honestly kind of sad it never happened.
Wasn't that a TV show?
It was 3 movies and a TV show, yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen any of the movies, so.
He only did the first movie, and he had, like, in his book, he details just the amount of shit he had to go through to make that movie. Yeah, God, I cringe listening to it. The dude, so there's a guy who was, like, meddling with all of his affairs. That guy had 3 assistants who got fired throughout the course of the movie, so that tells you, like, It was just shenanigans. But this isn't the Tom Coscarelli show, although you should definitely read that book. In 1943, there was a WB cartoon where Bugs Bunny, it was called Falling Hair, and he faces off against gremlins that are trying to crash planes, almost exactly like Mr. Futterman says, dun dun dun. And so, have you ever seen the original Twilight Zone episode with Willie Schatz, as I call him? There's something on the wing.
No, I haven't. I've seen a few episodes, but really not since I was like.
Basically, it looks like an Eskimo. And they said it was a gremlin. And so, in the 80s version of the Twilight Zone movie, John Lithgow actually does that scene. And it's like this really fun gremlin. I highly recommend. That's actually my favorite of the Twilight Zones that were redone. Lithgow is just fucking chewing the scenery like it's going out of style in that one. But there are some of your more classical references to Gremlins. Did you know that there was an Atari 2600 and 5200 video game for Gremlins?
Oh, no.
They're bad.
I played an Atari once in my life.
Real bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I was like a teenager too. So,
oh,
I was used to at least PlayStation and 64, maybe PS2 at the time. Probably PS2 at the time. But we were at a hotel in Lake Tahoe.
No.
And they had Ataris, and you can go up to the desk and like check out games. Oh, man.
You were like, why the fuck not ruin my life? I had a friend when I was visiting my grandma who had one, and we were like, oh, this is going to be so cool. We're going to be like retro gamers. We're like 9. God, it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Nothing worked. Every controller we tried was broken. Every game didn't work. We're like, what is this?
Right. I remember having a lot of problems, probably because, these cartridges or whatever had been handled by billions of kids, and you can't get new ones.
Exactly. And also, I'm sure you had people blowing in the cartridges and alcohol swabs and shit.
Not supposed to blow in them, even through your shirt.
It's not a good custom and practice. There was also a text-based game in 1985. Guess what? Also terrible. Why would you have a very frenetic movie turned into a scrolling text game? But I move on.
It seems kind of backwards.
It does. Now, there is a project currently in the works called Gremlins Secret of Mogwai. It's kind of a weird looking thing, but it looks to be an animated thing focused on Gizmo, which I think it's honestly kind of a shock that hasn't happened sooner. I think that if animation was as good then as it is now, and you could do think about how often you're watching like computer animated kids shows on TV. You could do that then. I mean, there's no question in my mind it would have been made.
Right. So it's a TV show then.
It looks like it, yeah.
It's kind of weird to bring back. When was the last time anything Gremlins was ever made?
1990 with Joe Dante when he did New Batch. There's also been a ton of fan films. So the most recent one that I saw was Gremlins Recall, which basically, if you know your history of Gremlins, Mr. Wing is the old Chinese man. And based on his name, there is a company called Wing, and they're marketing the fact that they can make you a safe mogwai. They can go in the light, that you can feed, you can get wet, doesn't matter. Well, it's called Recall because there's a guy who's basically like a dog catcher who's trying to catch the ones that are defective. And it sets up like its own idea for a sequel. It's a great tease. It's a lot of fun. The animation stuff's cool.
That's kind of cool. That's a cool idea.
I liked it a lot. It reminded me of what the new Child's Play did to the old Child's Play, brought in a 21st century capitalism. It had a very Paul Verhoeven kind of feel to it with RoboCop, Starship Troopers. It was very sardonic towards the modern, capitalist regime.
Right. The dad, kind of set that up anyways.
Yep, exactly. He's a peddler.
Right.
But it's like a different breed, right? He kind of has the snake oil salesman thing going, whereas this movie was it's the conglomeration that's evil.
So I didn't get the snake oil thing from it. I felt more he's a lovable, goofy, creator type guy where he loves to create.
Yeah.
He's not trying to con people. He loves creating more than his creativity or his ability to actually make them.
His ambition exceeds his ability. Yeah. Well, I think that you look at every time he has an opportunity to sell something, he does. When he's calling from the gas station to see if his family's okay, he immediately goes into salesman mode to sell that ashtray, which is awesome. Oh, smokeless ashtray. There's also Gremlins Back in Action, which has a really fun Gremlins first-person view at one point. Could have been trimmed for time. Gonna say that. It used some footage, which was fine. But I really like the ending, which sets up that there could be more, which I thought was fun. Clearly a student film, and clearly they just used pre-made Gremlins. But basically, it's a kid who's at home alone, and a gremlin pursues him. The kid kills the one gremlin, and knocks at the door. He goes, and then you see the back of a bunch of Gremlins heads that are like chuckling and like laughing to themselves. I also saw Gremlins 2 Film Break, which is awesome. Sasha Finer, wherever you are, I will kiss you on the mouth. It is this bizarre thing where basically it's Gremlins, instead of like tearing through the film like they do in the other movies, they're actually using a DVD menu and putting the Gremlins in other movies. So it goes into The Exorcist, Batman, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Goonies, and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. So fun. It's like 10 minutes of your life. It's great. For instance, The Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, when there's all the snakes in the pit and Indy's like, fuck this. They replace all the snakes with Gremlins and they're having a party. It's so good. With the Batman one, they replace technically it's Batman Returns because they replace the clowns that are attacking him with Gremlins. They're punching it, trying to get in, and he literally is punching a Gremlin in the face, which I thought was really well done. There's Gremlins: A Christmas Nightmare, which was so bad I couldn't finish it. There was Got Gremlins, which was kind of pointless because basically it just reiterated a couple of visual gags from the movie, and then there's the voiceover from the end. Gremlins 3, This Time Is War. There are so many fan films.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And honestly, like, they're not terrible. Like, I think the people, they have ambition. The only thing that frustrates me is so often people aren't creating anything new, which is what I liked about Recall. I actually got to see the behind the scenes featurette where they're making the puppets and everything. I'm going to root for that more than something that's store bought. But, you know, I've also seen the stupid Friday the 13th fan films where somebody pre-makes some shit and then just puts it on because they want to be, ooh.
Right.
Honestly, the word fan film frustrates me because I don't know if it should be called homework project.
Yeah.
Cue canned laughter. Ha 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 ha. Now, in terms of fan films, what would you call it if a major studio did a fan film? Would you call that a ripoff?
Yeah.
So shall I go through the many Gremlins ripoffs there have been over the years? We got Ghoulies from 1984, Ghoulies 2 in 1987, Ghoulies Go to College 1990, then Ghoulies 4. See how they skipped that? I hate that title.
Why? Well, it came out the same year. The first one.
The first one isn't as one-for-one remake or whatever. The first one really deals with like Satanism and whatnot. So I honestly don't think Ghoulies are that big of a ripoff. They become bigger characters in the sequel. In the first one, it's like a plot, and then the Ghoulies just kind of there, if that makes sense. Then you have Critters 1 through 4. You got Munchies and Munchie Strikes Back. You got Hobgoblins and Hobgoblins 2, Beasties, Elves. And then I have always purported that the minions from Despicable Me are basically just Gremlins. And then obviously the gingerbread men from Krampus are basically just Gremlins. But I take it you haven't seen any of these.
No.
For good reason, because most of them are bad. But I mean, Critters has its charms. Ghoulies has its charms. You know, Elves even kind of to an extent has its charms.
I've only even heard of Critters.
You haven't heard of Ghoulies?
No.
So Ghoulies, if you've watched your Stranger Things, the title credits for Ghoulies is actually what the Stranger Things logo basically just ripped it off. So when I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, that's vexing, isn't it? You pulling up the difference?
Yeah. Oh.
The font, the red,
even the creature itself looks familiar.
The one is it the toilet image?
Yeah. So it looks like from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, the Koopas.
The Koopas.
Hell yeah, it does. The other ones, I like that they're diverse. It's interesting that there's, one that's more like a rat and everything. There's a cat kind of one. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you fans out there would like us to do a review of it, I'm interested. So just let us know, slasherspod@gmail.com and blah, blah, blah. Now, the original PG-13. Did you know that there was a time in the MPAA where it was G or it was X? This, or I guess it's PG and X. But this movie and Temple of Doom are the two movies that inspired the PG-13 rating. Because this movie was marketed kind of to kids, and it obviously has some kind of vexing violence, like when you get to the microwave scene, for instance.
Right.
And then Temple of Doom, they rip out a still beating heart. Now, those movies weren't severe enough to be an X or R rating, but they were way beyond what a child should be watching. So these were very influential in the creation of PG-13.
Interesting. It's always funny to see older movies and how it's changed the rating system.
So weird, right? Because we did one recently where I was like, God, you cannot explain to me how that is. Oh, Phantoms. We recently did Phantoms that you were on. That movie is not an R-rated movie at all. I've seen way worse on TV.
Right.
Yeah. But I digress. Now, can I go on a weird diatribe before we get into the movie on the Gremlins rides that Warner Brothers made?
Please do.
Now, neither of these rides are still operational. Now, there was a WB theme park on the Gold Coast of Australia called Movie World that opened in 1991. They had what was called the Gremlin Invasion and a ride called the Great Gremlin Adventure. Now, if you were going to pair up the Gremlins with any Warner Brothers property, what would it be? Would it be Beetlejuice? Literally, they pair up the Gremlins with Beetlejuice. And basically the idea is that they're in the Warner Brothers backlot and they're like fucking with the editing equipment and the visual equipment, and Beetlejuice breaks you out and you escape by crashing through a wall outside. Now, ask me about the German version.
The what?
There is a German version that was duplicated at Movie World Germany. Oh, yes. So they replace the Beetlejuice with Alf. So I'm going to drop that. Alf. Literally the cat-eating alien. It is awesome. There's a vignette at the beginning of it where Alf is chasing a cat and he wants to eat the cat. But it's German Alf. And so he goes, boozy, 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 boozy. Sticks his hand under a sink, gets bitten by a gremlin. They then torture him. He then takes you through the ride and you electrocute all of the gremlins before escaping. So the Australian one closed down in 2001 when it was replaced with the Scooby-Doo ride, and the German one closed in 2004 when the park was sold. I am so sad I didn't know about these as a kid. I probably would have dragged my parents to Germany so I could hear pussy, 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 pussy.
So bizarre.
Absolutely.
To think that 2014 or 2004 was a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but
15 years ago, brother.
That long ago, considering
when this movie came
out.
Yeah, it's 20-year-old movie premise by that point. It's nuts. But I mean, that shows how like well received and liked the movie still is. And shall we get into the stabtistics for the week?
Let's do it.
So this movie was shot on a budget of $11 million. It was originally supposed to be a much smaller budget, but they ended up expanding it because the puppetry just became crazy. How much do you think it made worldwide?
Did it gross $148 million?
Oh, yeah, it did, dog. And also, through the video rental game, it made $80 million.
Wow.
That's nuts. So, I mean, very rarely can you get those kind of analytics that are anywhere reliable, but I was able to find it. The opening weekend was 6/8/84, which was obviously the same weekend that Ghostbusters came out. And here's the fun fact. This movie made more in its second week than in its first week. And Zach Galligan kind of attributed, that's the guy who plays Billy, attributed that to multiple factors. If you looked at the poster for this film, you see a little present, kids' hands holding it, and then Gizmo's hands coming out. Nothing about that says evil. Nothing about that. Like maybe it mysterious or intriguing, but not scary. So I think the word of mouth was huge for this movie.
Yeah, it had to have been.
And then one thing that he even talked about was when it came to Gremlins 2 came out against Dick Tracy. That's a very perfect age group to be frustrated because I remember seeing that at the same time. But it originally would have come out against Bird on a Wire, except for some meddling executive was like, oh, these analytics say you want it to be released at this time instead of May, which is when all great blockbusters come out, but whatever. I'm only going to sprinkle you a little bit with my Gremlins 2 stuff because you haven't seen it. The runtime on this movie, 106 minutes. Brian says this is way too long. What do you think?
I think it was long, yeah.
How much would you cut?
I mean, how cliche would it be to say 10 minutes and put it right in that?
That's a sweet spot, though.
Yeah, that. But I think there was some pacing issues. I don't know if 10 minutes it would probably be enough. But there would just seem to be like, we get to a certain point in the movie and I'm like, it's just starting to ramp up.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this should have ramped up like 15, 20 minutes ago.
That's fair.
And then it just keeps going. So, yeah.
I think 90 minutes is a much better time point. And also, especially if you're trying to market it in any way to kids, kids are dumb and they need that shorter attention span.
Right.
But one thing that makes me a little reluctant to speed it up is I love the music for this movie. That theme is so good. And I love like the hints of it throughout before it finally blows up when, you know, Mr. Futterman's or plow is about to get him. I mean, it's so good.
Well, we could talk about Jerry Goldsmith.
Please do.
So Jerry Goldsmith, and I'm just going to go off of a very popular page here, has done pretty much everything. So did pretty much all the Star Trek movies. He did Logan's Run, Planet of the Apes,
Alien.
Alien, The Mummy, LA Confidential, Air Force One. What has he not done? He did the Rambo movies.
Oh, yeah.
He did a movie that hopefully we'll do in the future, The 13th Warrior.
We are going to do. I've been waiting to read that book because I've read 3 books in the interim. So don't you get it twisted. Antonio Banderas is going to be running wild in the slashers because he uses a sword, which is a slashing device.
There we go. He's done so much. So about his score for it is, I feel like, especially nowadays, is that we've moved away from original scores.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
So many ways. And it takes me out of modern movies when a lot of movies are done great when they throw in like classic song or great songs that just fit so well. But I feel like a lot of movies don't. They just kind of slap songs on there that are fast paced or upbeat, or they try to match something modern music to make it.
The Guardians of the Galaxy effect.
Yeah. That's a good
or the Tarantino effect, I should say, yeah.
That's a good example. A great example, actually. But a lot of movies just don't do it well.
Suicide Squad.
I haven't seen it, actually.
Oh,
I haven't seen all
that
of
was
it.
a sick burn on my part because that movie sucks.
Yeah.
And they tried to basically just like rip off the successes of Guardians. And it's like, nope.
But so when you watch an old movie like this and you have an actual score that goes with it, it just makes everything fit and feel right.
Yeah.
It just, because it's hand tailored. It's, it's like going to get a custom suit or something.
Exactly. And then also I love a reprise where you have the theme come back in multiple different ways. It's so fun.
Right.
And this one, it's mischievous. It's bombastic. It can be played down. It can be played up. And it just fits. Like, it's a weird, like, synesthesia. Like, even if I had my eyes closed and I was just listening to the music, I would see the color green and I just feel that scuttling kind of mischief. It's perfect.
Right.
And I love the fact that this song isn't overly Christmassy. Like, you could see how it could just basically be a Jingle Bells parody, but it's really good. So shall we get into our good buddy, Chris Columbus? You know who that is?
No.
Chris Columbus, he is the guy who did The Rocketeer. He did the first Captain America, what do you call it? The first Avenger, which of course they ruined by making Captain Marvel the actual Avenger. Haha, cocksuckers. That pissed me off so bad. He did Home Alone, Home Alone 2, Mrs. Doubtfire, 9 Months, Stepmom, Bicentennial Man, which is actually quite good. A bunch of the Harry Potter movies. He's doing a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Why would you do that? Ugh, gag me with a spoon. But you can see this dude has some serious credentials. And so he wrote this while he was still living in New York City as a film student. And basically the premise was the rats that were living in his building and made him uncomfortable. So this is before he even did the Goonies. This is before he did, what do you call it? Obviously, one of the greatest films of all time, Christmas with the Cranks. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So obviously, I have a soft spot for him. Then you talk about the gore factor. And I love the fact this movie was actually toned down, because I think that the other one, I think, would have gotten to that point of like, people would kind of dismiss it almost like a trauma film. Because originally the dog got eaten, the mom's head gets ripped off and thrown down the stairs at Billy when he gets home. There's some stuff in there that I think works better otherwise.
That's pretty crazy. So you have one here. There was 8 drafts in Gizmo becoming Stripe all the way through the final draft.
Yep.
So was there no like lovable Mogwai at all? It was just, they were just pure evil.
They all turned evil. And it was Steven Spielberg's idea, who was like, no, you need to have a good one. You need to have that pillar. And that's the best part. Honestly, like I think Gizmo is so integral to this, because think about that movie Evolution, right? All of the aliens are bad. Even that cute fat one that's waddling is bad. Well, you're not rooting for anybody. There's no redeeming qualities in these characters. You just want to nuke them all. But you like Gizmo. You're rooting for Gizmo. So he adds such a nice element to it. And that bastion of peace and tranquility. And if you read the novelization of this movie, while completely bastardizing it, also adds a really fun wrinkle as to, Gizmo, especially when he becomes Rambo, literally Rambo in the second one.
In the second movie? Or book?
Oh, yeah. He uses a fucking bow and arrow that's got a flaming thing of liquid paper on it. It's awesome.
I'm going to have to watch it now.
Oh, yeah. So, did you know that the colorization of the Mogwai is based on Steven Spielberg's dogs?
Oh yeah, they look very dog-like, like Australian Shepherd or something. Not quite.
Oh yeah, there we go. It's Steven Spielberg's King Charles Cavalier Spaniels. It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Why would I have ever had a brain fart about that? And so I keep bringing up Steven Spielberg's name because he was the producer on this film and he actually bought the script from Chris Columbus. Now, can I talk to you about there's two shared universes that I want to talk about. So director Joe Dante, obviously The Howling, right? So there are two reasons why this movie is related to like other universes. The first is the news reporter at the very end is the same actor playing a news reporter as in The Howling. So basically this guy is in the, the best, he's going to be a Pulitzer Prize winning guy or Pulitzer Prize winning journalist because of this. Then you have, and I quote, Chinese boy, if you go to the credits, and he is obviously Short Round.
He is credited as Chinese boy.
It literally, if you read the credits, it just says Chinese boy, but he's wearing the Yankees hat. He's fast talking. He's just a teenage version of Short Round. So this movie is in the Indiana Jones universe and otherwise. What do you think?
I'll buy it.
Yeah, I don't think many people will. Given the fact that Indiana Jones takes place like 50 years before us. Maybe it's Short Round's kid. Maybe Short Round smoked too many cigarettes and he's Mr. Wing. It was Short Round Wing the whole time. And now, the other producer was Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, hey, there she is again.
Awkward. She has done good things. This is one of them, so she's probably still riding the coattails of this as she butt-fucks Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
So do you want to know about the original novelization of this?
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. Did you know that the Mogwai are aliens?
No.
They were created by a thing called Mogturn men, and the Mogturn men use cross-pollination and mixed different species of crawling carnivores and created a very, quote, their vast intelligence to seem to interfere with their ability to communicate. So literally, Gizmo is so smart, he can't talk human because he will like blow your fucking mind. So he created these creatures, or the Mogturn men created them to be these great examples of living in peace and harmony. Then they were unstable, and that's where you get the rules. But 1 out of every 10,000 Mogwai are good. So Gizmo is an incredibly slim chance. And he masters meditation. At one point, he's frequently reminding himself of the San Francisco earthquake as a means of calming himself down because of the chaos of it, I guess. In the book, you find out this isn't the first time there was a Gremlins outbreak. There was one, I think it's 1942 in China, and that's where he actually meets Mr. Wing, who saves him. The book refers to Asian people as Orientals multiple times. The old Asian man gets his rocks off by making Gizmo eat things that aren't edible, like a plastic washer. Super weird. The Mogwai can talk to each other, but then the Mogturn men had genetically engineered them so they couldn't kill one another, which is why Stripe doesn't kill him. Very interesting. And they also had something to do with the 1983 Columbia spaceship and the issues on the spacecraft. So, it's a weird book.
Super weird.
You can find it online. It's worth reading. It's only 300 pages.
It's 300 pages I'll read elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of, well, you did say it bastardized the, like.
But like, you got to think, when these novelizations were happening, these guys didn't often get the script. They had no visualization because so often they had no idea what was going on in the film. So he's just like, oh, it's a thing? Well, fuck, fine. We'll just go for it. Now, director Joe Dante didn't really like the book. He thought that the guy kind of went a little too far. His point was that George Gipe, he tried to use science. He tried to create a pseudo explanation. But according to Joe Dante, the Mogwai were, quote, the results of mating a dragon with a panda. It was mysticism to him and science to him. And I think that the mysticism is way cooler to me. Mr. Wing is the coolest. So do you want to kind of get into the design, the Chris Wallace design?
So the makeup was done by Chris Wallace and the creature design also. And he said, Gremlins was the most testing project in my entire life. It almost killed me. You could see why. I can't imagine having to make that many unique critters.
And he lost count of how many he made. And there are scenes where, like, if you go to the movie theater, where puppeteer would have one gremlin on its head, one on each hand, and it would be pivoting like it was a dancing cactus. Crazy, right?
You said a lot of what you see in the film was literally made up the day before.
Yeah. Like Stripe on the skateboard, they've just figured it out. Funny enough, one of the ones that was really easy for them to do was Stripe on the tricycle.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
like
funny.
a built-in training wheel.
I thought it, because it's the very, very climax of the movie, and he's just riding away.
It's so silly. But that's the great part is he's the most evil one, and he's still a doofus. Like, he still wants candy, and he's still playing games. So, I mean, this movie is near perfect, and I think that the second one is just slightly nearer to perfecter.
So originally, the Mogwai were brown and even more furrier, and Steven Spielberg recommended they change the color to be more like Gizmo, which makes sense. You wouldn't, I mean, they're all the same creature. You wouldn't want one looking like a, I don't know, monkey or something.
They just looked weird. It looked like they were just dirty. I think probably one of my favorite things that Rick Baker did in taking the reins and doing Gremlins 2, well, A, he didn't want to do Chris Wallace's work. That was not a consideration for him. But then B, he really had some great ideas. So, spoiler alert, other Mogwai come from Gizmo getting wet in the movie, right? And as the other Mogwai are there, each one has a different personality. You know, there's one that has a mohawk, but it's black and it looks evil. There's one that's just completely daffy. There's one that's kind of slow and dopey. And when they become gremlins, they still retain those elements to them. And just the diversification. They also do some really visual, awesome gags when it comes to like like bioengineering and stuff. But that's like the big takeaway. But this is such a good template to go off of. It's so good.
So we talked about it earlier, but the coloring.
Mm-hmm.
So the new Lady and the Tramp live action movie for Disney Plus.
Awkward.
They changed Lady to the King Charles Cavalier Spaniel.
Yeah, not a fan. It keeps trying to get me to watch it when I log into it. I'm like, no, I just want to watch the one thing, The Mandalorian, and that's it.
Oh, The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah, duh. And then I started watching Gargoyles again, too. So maybe a few things on there. Shall we get into nicknames?
Nickname?
Prick names. Zach Galligan was Billy Peltzer. He described working with the puppets, quote, as an actor's nightmare.
Could see that.
Yeah, and so the rules element of the movie was added pretty late in production as well. They didn't originally exist. So when they added the rule of not eating after midnight, even the cast and crew was aware of the time zones joke. But that actually even gets directly made fun of in the sequel. But the point is that they just kind of rolled with it, which I thought was very interesting that he was very open to talking about these issues. They said that all of Gremlins was shot on the soundstage except for one day, which was in Pasadena. They also shot the Chinatown stuff in Glendale, but that obviously didn't have Billy in it because it's just his dad. But I mean, it was super small and focused and everything. And he talked about how when he would drive off the lot from Warner Brothers every day, the security guys would make him open his trunk and prove that he hadn't taken a gizmo because those puppets were valued at $30,000 to $40,000 of 1980s money.
That's crazy.
Does that blow your mind?
Do you know how many they made?
Dozens. So here's the interesting fact. Gizmo was never meant to be in the entire movie. Gizmo was only going to be in the beginning because he turns into Stripe. So it's only late in the game that they take this fucking puppet that was only meant to get halfway through the movie and they're having to go through everything. And he's having to drive around in a fucking car and he's having to be toted around in a backpack. He's trying to do all this extra stuff. So they had to get really creative with that. It's a good thing that the Mogwai looked like him because they could just rotate him out. Now, did you know that on that topic, up close shots of Gizmo, how big do you think that Gizmo is?
A little bit bigger than your hand?
No, dude. The close-ups are about the size of your wingspan.
Oh,
it's a huge puppet that they would shoot because they could be way more detailed in the animation and everything, and they just scale it in. And I was so grateful to be watching this in HD. Like, usually I don't really care about HD all that much, but this was so rad to see. Just the attention to detail in that face was so great.
Do you have a 4K TV?
I think it has that feature. I'm not sure.
Oh, well,
I don't ever. I think it does, but I don't think I ever have anything that's in 4K.
Well,
oh yeah, The Mandalorian. Yes, it is 4K.
Yeah, well, because Gremlins, I don't have a 4K TV, but when I went to watch it on YouTube, it was like 4K. I was like, oh wow, like it's pretty
spiffy,
crazy. That's the cool thing about film is that you can scale it. The definition's all there.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's so many details to be found in this movie. When we get into this play-by-play, I'm just going to belabor everything. This is going to be a 17-hour fucking episode. So let's get to the point. What would you call Billy Peltzer?
You're the O Billy from.
Do it.
No, it's okay.
Oh, Billy. Oh, that's what he is. And I won't take anything else. You got Phoebe Cates as Kate Berenger. She said that working with the creatures was much more of a challenge. And she had just come out of some movie where she was in a slinky bikini. Don't know if you heard of it, whatever. So she was like this sex symbol. And Galligan talked about how he and Phoebe Cates would like go out on the town after filming and whatnot. And there'd be these like big brawny dudes who were coming up to her and trying to like flirt with her and like couldn't get anything going because she was just
shut them down.
She was the Fast Times at Miserable Ridge Mile High girl. Like she was way too hot. And so like, they would get like scared, and it's just such a fun thing because in that she's like sexy and rad, and then in this she's like so quaint and like almost like a bumpkin. She's the Shelley Duvall of this. She's Wendy Torrance, right? So I would make a motion to call her Shelley Duvall, but you can call her whatever you'd like.
We can go with that. I mean, drop the names halfway through, anyways.
Yeah, standard custom and practice here. You got Hoyt Axton as Randall Rand Peltzer. He was a country singer before becoming an actor.
Oh.
Yeah,
he looks familiar, but I feel like I'm mixing him up with like I don't know. Does he look like Dan Aykroyd or not? Like
yeah, a little bit. Like if you fatten him up a bit.
Yeah.
But Hoyt was also in Tropic Thunder, Encino Man, Forrest Gump. Or no, excuse me. Whoa, strike all that. That was a soundtrack that he did for those movies. Weird.
That's kind of cool.
Actor. He was in. I'm trying to think of what it was. By this point, he'd already been in like 70 things though. He did a bunch of TV acting. There was something that he acted in. Oh, well, if it doesn't come to my mind, it doesn't fucking exist. So anything, we'll just call him Dad.
Yeah, that's what my notes were, because I don't know if they ever even recall him by his name.
Just him calling himself Rand.
Maybe the mom. Maybe the mom does, but I also called her mom. So
yeah. So that was Frances Lee McCain as Lynn Peltzer. And she said, quote, "The Gremlins are actually some of the better actors I've ever worked with." She's sarcastic and I love her. And in the novelization, she dreams about being in the army. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Now, we could give everybody else nicknames. I mean, the only person who really deserves it, I think, is Mr. Futterman, which,
right.
I mean, Dick Miller fucking rules. So I would make a motion that we could call him DMFR. Dimfer for Dick Miller fucking rules.
Okay, DMFR it is.
All right. And then I guess you could give one to Corey Feldman, but whatever. Call him Tommy Jarvis. And let's move on to the recapitation, shall we? Shall I be doing this since you're going to lead the play-by-play?
Go for it.
A boy gets a present, and through his own inexperience and irresponsibility, basically causes a town to have Christmas ruined for not one young lady, but all. And it's blamed on mass hysteria.
Nice.
And capitalism is evil.
It's funny because I thought that in the beginning of the movie, I thought it was going to be the dad that screwed it up. I was like, oh, he's not going to tell the kid at all. I mean, they even made it sound like that. He's like, oh, okay, whatever, when he was being told the rules. And the stupid Billy.
Well, the first one I give him a pass on. The dumb kid knocking over the paintbrushes is fine. But then every other one, I'm like, come on, dude. But then even the second one.
Well, I guess so. It's not
his ignorance. He does check the clock.
Yeah.
But you got to be better than that. So the WB logo at the starting of the movie, did you know that had actually been discontinued by this point? The original like Warner Brothers crest, and they'd stopped using it in the 70s. And then Joe Dante had to like beg them to use this because by this time they were using the Time Warner logo. And most recently, you could see that in the Joker movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
It's not that good. I watched it. It's like fine. It is completely adequate, but it's just like, it's boring. And there's like no script. The script is 5 pages.
It's all drama and
it's like him
drawn out.
Yeah, him laughing at himself and crying. And I'm just like, I don't have the fucking time for this, dude. Like, do something. Pull out a giant mallet and hit somebody who looks like a bat, for fuck's sake. It was just a sad little movie. Like, it was just like watching The Graduate or something. Like, what the fuck am I watching?
Oh, man.
But it's not bad. It's just fine. Like,
right.
It's not one of those things. Like, there were elements of it I liked, and the stuff I liked, I really liked. But then so much of it, I was just fucking bored. The exact opposite of this movie, where I feel like I'm intrigued or I'm just riveted. Like, even though this movie is long, I love it all. So this is one where I don't mind the length so much, but I can definitely see why it's too long. So you take it away.
So the movie starts with a guy walking through Chinatown, and he's doing a voiceover. It's very noir-esque. It was kind of weird because The only time they do it is in the beginning and then the very, very end.
Exactly.
And the very end, it doesn't sound as, it's not as Norse because the beginning is the visuals help with it.
Well, he even has the
And
hat.
he's got the hat and the overcoat,
Yeah.
and he's walking through Chinatown, the big white guy in Chinatown.
The seedy kind of part of town.
Yeah.
Going into a basement.
Yeah, following this kid into a basement. And so he's talking about how he has a story to tell.
Which sounds like the start of a country song, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And so he's looking for a Christmas present for his son. So he follows this boy into his grandfather's shop.
And the shop, if you look at the 4 Mandarin symbols on the door, it translates roughly to gods and monsters, which I will let you know, I am not fluent in any kind of language. I'm barely fluent in English, so I might be wrong on that. Also, Gods and Monsters is a movie where Ian McKellen kisses Brendan Fraser's neck. Never forget it. Move on.
So he follows him down.
Oh, can I talk about this real quick? Sorry. I hate to have cut you off, but I actually literally screen capped the part from the book in here because I think it's so rad. So in the book, they established that his dad just goes to Chinatown and he has no idea why. Quote, how he arrived in Chinatown, he was not exactly sure. He had no recollection of ordering a cabbie to, quote, take me to Chinatown, end quote, or even of deciding that he should take himself there. Probably, as he meandered through the shop and mall and stall in search of the elusive, unique present, he had arrived in Chinatown almost by osmosis. He had never shopped here before, although he had visited as a tourist. But why not? Why shouldn't this be the place where he found it, whatever it was?
Why?
As it adds such a cool wrinkle, though. It's so fucking weird. Like, right? That's such a weird thing to just extrapolate on. But this is what happens when you're trying to make 300 pages of book out of nothing.
Great. I'm so, when I have to write stuff, I'm so bad at bullshitting, but clearly this guy is great at it.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, you can take over. Sorry, buddy.
So he's going into the store and there's all sorts of cool stuff and old stuff and obviously Chinese cultural dragons and stuff like that. And he immediately goes into his inventor shtick and selling stuff, and he has his bathroom buddy and he's explaining it to the old Chinese man, and he's just kind of staring at him. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I love it so much. Mr. Wing is great in the scene because it's one of those ones where like you don't know if he speaks English until he starts speaking English.
Right. And as he's doing this, he hears so this is the dad, obviously, so let's call him Dad. He hears squeaking sounds in the back, and he goes and checks it out, and it's Gizmo is singing when he's in a box or a cage.
Does that song get stuck in your head every time I watch this movie or the sequel?
It didn't at the time, but I'm also watching it and taking notes.
Yeah, fair point.
I've kind of talked about it before, but it kind of like, especially when you're watching a movie, like, or first time movie, or like you haven't seen it in a while, it kind of messes with your.
Oh yeah,
like
this is almost an every year movie for me.
Yeah, it's something. Well, it would be. My wife checked out like an hour in. So I was like,
your wife is not the most patient of people, and neither is mine, because my wife also checked out about halfway through, and then started watching The Crown on her phone in our bedroom. But she left me with the full big TV, so I was happy. I was like, get thee gone, woman.
Anyways, yeah, but when he does sing, though, super cute.
Super cute. You know who does the voice of Gizmo?
No.
Howie Mandel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I knew that. I think.
Yeah. He did the voices for Bobby's World, too.
Right.
So he was kind of patented the cute voice game. And then he had a soul patch. I mean, what more could you ask for in life?
I love the little their lines throughout just the little lines throughout the movies, the one words or whatever it is.
Super cute.
Is done, executed very well. So here's a squeaking. He goes back and checks it out, and he offers $100 for it. And the old man says, "With Mogwai comes much responsibility." And the kid basically tells him to wait outside. And so the dad leaves, and the boy brings a box with the Mogwai in it. And this is where, on the way out, it's like a long panning shot of just like him leaving. You're not really close to him or anything. And it's like the voiceover again saying the rules. And the dad basically just says, "Whatever you say, kid."
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you adjust for inflation, he gives the kid $487.91. And it seems like he's really bad at what he does. And then his mom doesn't seem to work. And so it's just Billy supporting all these people on his bank teller salary. But I don't think they do a good enough job of saying, like, this guy is making a terrible financial decision right here.
Right.
So anyway, keep going. But that's like the one takeaway I had, because the kid's not necessarily very compelling. He's just like, whatever, my grandpa needs money and he's crazy. That's, yeah.
Yeah, so almost $500 for something that you don't know what it is, but it's furry and cute.
And nobody knows what it is. I mean, that's one of the crazy parts. It's like nobody's like, this is the scientific find of the century. It's like, okay, it's just there.
Right. So they live in this world where, hey, look, there's something I've literally never heard of, but it's okay. We'll just buy it.
I think that's because this is in the Howling and Indiana Jones universes, where you have Nazis melting with looking at little trinkets and werewolves.
Yeah,
these people are just fatigued.
Anything could happen.
Yeah.
So we cut to basically a Christmas town in full flight. Snow everywhere, kids, snowball fights, and we kind of get introduced to a lot of the characters really rapidly.
Really quickly, yeah.
We're at a Christmas tree lot, and we meet the sheriff and one of his deputies, and we meet the boy, Pete. Is that his name?
Yeah, Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
Which, what I love about this scene is you basically have cops who are begging for a Christmas tree and trying to like extort this guy. Then you have Corey Feldman who's walking around dressed as a tree,
yeah,
whose dad is making him do manual labor. It's just awesome.
And then we meet, Billy. So we meet Billy and his dog. They're trying to get his VW.
Barney, have some respect, played by the
Barney.
great and illustrious Mushroom was the name of the dog. I'm not kidding you, man. I went way into the weeds with my research on this one. This is what happens when Brian edits the Patreon bonus episode and I have extra time to breathe and think over the week. I'm like, well, fuck, why not read a 300-page novelization that sucks and makes things weird?
Jake goes hard on Gremlins.
Yeah, I do. How Raw Dog did.
So Billy and Barney are trying to get in his car and it won't start. And this is where Mr. Futterman comes in, asks if he needs a jump, and DMFR. And then DMFR talks about why won't it start? Because it's foreign crap.
This is where nationalism's okay, because it's Dick Miller. Anybody else would be like, nope, that's not appropriate.
However you want to qualify that, Jake.
Yeah, no, for sure. I felt weird saying it too. I'm like, I'm defending it with a fictional character. Nah, I'm just we'll move on. You could, yeah.
So Billy starts to walk through town to work. He works at a bank, and Phoebe Cates works there too. Did we have a nickname for her?
I think we did. Oh yeah, it's Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall. So
that's a weird one. You're not gonna like that. Let's just call her Fast Times.
Fast Times. All right. So she works there too, and she kind of asks him to sign something. And they kind of give each other a look for probably the worst love story I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, they don't really have any chemistry. It's very odd.
Well, not even like lack of chemistry. It's like it just wasn't. There was just nothing. They were barely had. Even though they were together for like the majority of like the second half of the movie, they didn't really do much of anything.
Yeah, and then when he kisses her, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they just kiss. So you're like, why? Okay.
He's also not a gentleman. When they're running through the snow, he doesn't give her his coat. She's just walking around holding her elbows, and he's just like, oh, I'm sweaty in this huge, thick suit.
And so we get Mrs. Deagle, so old cranky lady, coming through the street carrying a snowman's head, super crabby, bitchy to everybody. And she gets confronted by mother and children saying that her rent's going to be late because I guess she's their landlord or something.
Like $36 worth, and she's...
Yeah. Like, it was super small amount, and she just acts like a bitch to them. She's like, well,
maybe you could ask for Santa for a house for Christmas. Jesus.
So Miss Deagle goes into the bank and basically says that Billy's dog broke her snowman, and she doesn't want money. She wants Barney so she could kill him.
Yes.
Slowly.
Yeah, dude. This is your little dog too moment for this movie.
Yeah, super fucked up though.
Yeah, she's dark. I really am not a fan of her. But she does a great job of being unlikable.
Oh yeah.
No.
And then this jumps to Barney jumps over and attacks her.
Which is crazy because that dog puts his mouth around her arm and she's just like, whatever. And then further breaks what's left of the snowman's head.
Right. Yeah, it falls, like shatters.
And it's so weird because like she was already that upset about just a ceramic snowman, and now she has physically been assaulted and she's like, oh, whatever, I'll just get you.
Yeah, I'm going to get you. And she's like sticking her face in the dog's face. Like, I'm going to get you. Why would you do that to a dog that just bit your arm?
Yeah, not smart, dude.
And she's like, oh, my heart.
Yeah, right. But then Billy keeps his job because it's the holidays.
Right. Well, it goes to the bar.
Yep.
And is Billy a high school student or not?
It's weird. So Billy was not originally. The reason that he and Corey Feldman are friends in this movie is because originally he was the same age as Corey Feldman. They just aged him up. So think about that age difference of getting to 21. What was the drinking wage in 84? Was it still? Yeah, it was still 21. So I don't know. That means that he would have had to age up 7 years to be where he is, but that's whatever. So this scene is him, and it's Phoebe Cates, who could have been younger because you could only have to be 18 to be, serving alcohol, as far as I know. I might be wrong. Who knows? I'm not a doctor of alcohol. And then you have Judge Reinhold, who comes in. He's a total prick. I love Judge Reinhold. Like from the 80s, he's so good. And like Beverly Hills Cop, he's great.
So his coworker.
Yeah. Who's like a prick.
Gerald, yeah.
Now what's crazy is there's a whole subplot where he's like helping Mrs. Deagle, and they're like buying out the land. They're going to extort everybody, and they're going to try and sell it to some chemical company, and they just completely cut it. So this is the last time really that you see him as any speaking points, and I'm like, fuck no, it could have been so good. At least let him die on screen.
God, it would have been like a 3-hour movie.
Could you imagine? No, I don't want the subplot. I just want more Judge Reinhold because I love him. I actually would have really liked him as Billy in this movie because I think he has way more boyish charm in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. Better actor too.
Oh yeah, for sure. So no offense, Zach Gallagher. I like you and all. You seem super nice in all of the stuff I was watching, but still, like, it's Judge Reinhold. I mean,
at the time,
I'm an attorney. His name is Judge. Judge me.
So Billy's in the bar, and he's drawing himself as a knight fighting the old lady as a dragon.
Super cute.
And so, yeah, his coworker, Gerald, comes in, basically just giving him shit. He's like, somebody almost applied for unemployment today.
Would you say he's playing Gerald's game? You know what that is? It's a book turned into a horror movie where a lady gets tied up. It's fine. You don't have to.
So
I don't need your fucking pity, Jim.
Fast Times also works at the bar. Forget what. She's just making extra money.
Yeah, because her dad's dead, so she has to help support her family.
Oh, yeah, that was super fucked up, too.
I love it so much. We'll just cut to that part. So Joe Dante loves this monologue. And Steven Spielberg didn't care for it, and the movie executives wanted it cut, but Dante and Spielberg got final cut of the movie. And so Dante was like, this needs to be in here. And Spielberg was like, fuck, fine, I guess, whatever. And I always laugh hysterically during this monologue, and everybody looks at me like I'm fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's because you are.
It's so fucking funny, though. Like, she delivers it so well, and the source material is so dark, and it's absurd in like this profoundly meta way to me. Everything else in this movie is very overt, hits you over the head. But this is like the one point of, I'm not going to say subtlety, but just weirdness.
Right. I was expecting like he just ran out on them, or, we just never saw him again on Christmas. So that's my Christmas was ruined. But he had to die in the fucking fireplace dressed as Santa. I don't know. Everything about it, it doesn't fit with the rest of the movie for me. It was so out of left field. I was like, wow.
That's why I like it. But keep going.
It's all right.
There's also a great one-liner about it in the second one, so I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's great.
So we cut to Billy coming home, and he closes the door, and this is where we get Chekhov's sword.
Oh, really? I did not know that was
like Chekhov's gun.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant Star Trek.
No.
I was super excited, and I was like, wait a second, that's Sulu who uses... keep going.
No, it's oh, sorry. I know what you mean now.
Yeah, I was like, wait, hold on.
No, so he closes the door, and a sword falls.
Yeah.
And then the dad does it, too, when he comes home. But anyways, it's the Chekhov's gun where if there's something you see, if there's a gun on the mantelpiece in Act 1 and Act 3, it will come into play.
Exactly.
I love seeing those little things.
It's so much easier in animation because usually you just look for the one thing that's colored differently than everything else.
Right.
But in movies, like with live action, it's always kind of a fun hunt.
Right. So he goes and talks to mom, and it turns out Miss Deagle is also there.
Very odd.
I didn't understand what was going on there, but she was like obviously mad. Dad comes home, and this is where he gives Billy a gift. He shakes it. It's like,
yeah.
So he opens it, and he says, I think his dad calls it a mogwai, but I just call him Gizmo. That's how he gets his name. Makes sense.
Gizmo because he's an inventor.
Right.
Yeah.
And mom gets the camera and takes a picture, and the flash goes off. And Gizmo gets all scared. And this is where the dad repeats the rules.
Do you want me to go through the rules?
I mean,
1, don't feed after midnight. 2, don't submit them to bright light. Sunlight could kill them. 3, don't get them wet. I went out of order, but whatever.
So it cuts to Bill in his room. He's playing the keyboard for Gizmo, and Gizmo starts singing and playing. So it's obviously this intelligent, very intelligent creature. Puts the Santa hat on him and shows him a mirror, which reflects some bright light, and he falls in the trash can and his head is bleeding. So he takes him to the bathroom.
It's one of my favorite reaction gifs to use because he's got the Santa hat and his eyes just go fucking buck wild and each in a different direction.
So now I'm thinking of like a giant fucking Gizmo with a Santa hat on.
It's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, dude. That belongs in like a museum somewhere.
So next morning, we see Billy making or he's trying to use the dad's juicer. So we start to see more of his
oh god, it's so good.
Gadgets.
It's one orange, but it's like a torrential downpour of orange juice. It rules.
So yeah, it freaking explodes. And then Pete comes in dressed as a tree. He says he's bringing them their tree. There's a lot of cuts back and forth, just like little scenes. But and then we go back to the kitchen, and it's literally the entire kitchen is covered in oranges.
It's awesome.
So the next scene is Gizmo watching TV, and he's watching Cars. He's like, vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
And this is where Pete meets Gizmo, and he accidentally spills water on him. And so his skin starts bubbling, and the hairballs pop off, and they start growing. And this is where we get all the 5 new Mogwai.
Which is super rad. The way they did the effect is they literally just fed balloons from underneath, and they just drilled the hole, and it's a balloon they just covered in fake hair. So it's literally just makeup artists going and inflating it like that. There's no extra trickery. You're not adding anything to it. I thought it was really fun.
That's cool. It's always interesting to see practical effects or how like behind the scenes stuff. I like how they created stuff. It reminds me of the dog skin in Phantoms.
Oh yeah, dude.
Probably done the same way. So we cut to a scene where Billy is coming in to tell his dad about the Mogwai, and his dad's doing like the sales pitch to his own son type of thing.
It's so good. He's such a charming character. I kind of wish that you saw him in more things.
So he tells him about all that Gizmo multiplied, and they go back to the house. I think he's in the garage or something. And all the Mogwai are all playing with the Christmas presents. And then we cut tonight. The Mogwai are asleep, and Barney starts howling.
Super sad.
Yeah, and one of the Mogwai is like grinning. I think it might have been Stripe. And so Billy goes outside, and Barney's strung up in the Christmas lights. And he gets him down, and he's talking with his parents, and he thinks it's Miss Deagle.
That's such a weird like jump to make, right? Like that clearly that didn't happen. But okay.
Right. This old lady got a hold of your dog and somehow strung him up in Christmas lights without getting her head bit off.
Yeah. Pulled him out of the house, had the leverages to lift him over her head. Yeah. Come on, dude. But I guess, he is a naive kid, and he's very, narrow perspective.
So about him being a kid again, or maybe he's 21.
Yeah.
Next thing he goes and he calls his teacher to check out, or he brings Gizmo to his teacher.
I call him Science Man.
Science Man. Yeah. Science Man. And so I don't know, obviously, so you keep in touch with your teachers after high school. Some people do. Sure, whatever. Or it's his teacher now. But they bring it to Science Man, and he puts water on it, like a little dropper, like an eyedropper of water to sprout one more Mogwai.
It's so fun because it sets up that it's not an indeterminate amount of water, because when Stripe jumps into the pool later, it's like, fuck. Right? It's cool.
Yeah, it sets up that there's another rule to whatever the mysticism behind the Mogwai is. So after taking him to his school teacher, Billy's walking by the bar, and Mr. Futterman is drunk, and he's talking about foreigners planting gremlins in cars and TVs and radios. And they get Billy and Fast Times get him to walk home. And as they're walking through town, we find out that Katie doesn't like Christmas. And then Billy asks her out on a date Thursday.
And she's like, hell yeah, give me that dick. Right? I might be paraphrasing, sorry.
So we go back to the teacher, and he's drawing blood with a syringe from the Mogwai.
Which has a certain degree of menace to it.
Yeah. It was like right in the palm of the Mogwai's hand, too. I was
very
like,
odd.
ugh.
Yeah, the finger's no good. But I mean, I guess he's trying to find fleshy bits that doesn't have hair on it, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. So it cuts back to Billy in his bedroom. He's watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And all the Mogwai are going crazy.
So cute. It reminds me of my fucking kid just making noise and like running around. And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening right now? I'm trying to watch a black and white movie. And this is where Gizmo, every time I say neat, I always say it like Gizmo when he's sitting there with his stupid 3D glasses. I don't know. Those things that get burned into your head when you're a kid just change the scope of your entire life.
So Billy looks at his clock and it's like 11:30 or something. And he goes to get them food. And so he gets some chicken. And then we cut back to the teacher, who is also eating and leaves his sandwich next to the cage. And then we go back to Billy's room. He's asleep. He wakes up. There's a bunch of cocoons in his room.
So I had said chrysalis, and then I very sternly reminded when the subtitle came up and it said cocoon, and I was like, well, fuck. The papal stage. And what's interesting, the science man has enough foresight to take away the chips, but leaves a sandwich. And so I love when you hear the Mogwai go, yum. It's already started like, oh, this is evil. This is bad. Like, I would love to watch this movie for the first time, not having known what it was, because I can only imagine how cool that would have been. Like, oh, that's tipping the scales. Yeah. So they basically don't freak out at all, which is kind of weird. Billy ends up going to the lab and they cut out the cocoon from the cage. But really, like, they're not calling National Guard. They're not burning the things. And so it's his mom who's really starting to deal with it all. She is making cookies and she tries to answer with this cordless phone device that doesn't work. So she takes the extra 2 steps across the kitchen to answer, and it's the dad. And the dad's calling from an inventors convention, which this is an awesome scene of like in jokes. The guy who's on the little cart with the broken leg that's spinning around him, that's Steven Spielberg, dude. The time machine in the background is H.G. Wells' time machine that's used in the movie time after time, where the guy who played the scientist from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze goes up against Malcolm McDowell because he's Jack the Ripper. It's so good. Then you have Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet. Oh, it's so good. Oh, and then Jerry Goldsmith is there and Zach Galligan's stand-in is there.
I literally missed all of that.
Oh, it's so cool. And then if you watch closely, you'll see the time machine disappears like from shot to shot, and there's like a tuft of smoke implying that it worked. It's so good. And so basically he's like, yeah, I'm pretty much outside my depth. And they hang up. Mrs. Deagle, this is where she has the threatening Barney again. And then basically Billy is like, oh, Billy is like, oh, I know you killed my dog. You tried to kill him with Christmas lights. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Then we go back to the science class. Do you want to know how into this movie I am? I can tell you what movie was playing on the overhead projector, bitch. It's called The Hemo the Magnificent from 1957.
Hemo, as in blood.
Yep. Directed by Frank Capra. Oh! Yeah, dude, I went nuts. I'm sorry. Like, every time you're saying something, I'm having to debate, like, should I have mentioned the fact that he was leading the dog Barney through the streets with a thin piano wire, thus giving the illusion that he was not on a leash, but he actually was?
Oh, my God.
That's how detailed I am. So keep going, man. Sorry. I really, really like this scene.
So they're watching a movie, and he's, for some reason, he boxed up the cocoon, and it's on his desk. And we actually cut back to Billy's room, where the cocoons are starting to rupture, and smoke and claws are coming out. And we're back to the science class, and the box is smoking and shaking. And just in time, the bell rings and the kids leave right as the box falls on the floor. So the teacher calls Billy to let him know it hatched, with the cocoon is on the floor and there's nothing there. So, like, obviously, whatever it was is got up.
Yeah, you got to love his fucking priorities. He makes the phone call and then tries to track the thing down, whereas I'd be like, well, it could escape. It could hurt someone. You're at a school. Civil liability. Dude, this is chaos.
He's looking for the Mogwai finally, and he's taking a candy bar and kind of like enticing him with it.
So good.
And you don't ever see it, but then it's like under the table. So he sticks his hand with the candy bar down there.
What a dumbass.
Yeah. And he gets
You're supposed to be smart, science man.
His hand gets bitten, but you don't see anything. He screams, and then it cuts to Billy. So Billy comes in, and he finds the teacher dead with a syringe stuck in his ass.
I don't know that he's dead. He might just be unconscious, but he probably dead.
Totally dead.
Okay, sure.
So he goes to try to grab the phone, and his hand gets cut up by the gremlin claw. And then
It tries to eat an apple, and it
It
throws
throws
it
it
at
at
him and
him.
says, yuck. And then it literally eats glass from a test tube, no problem, and escapes through the vent. So Billy runs off to the nurse's office to wrap his hand, and boom, erupts the gremlin that you see for the first time in full body from the cabinet trying to attack him again before it scuttles off through the vent. Man, that's such a fun reveal.
yeah, it was good. It was kind of like just swinging on the door too,
Yeah,
laughing.
it's super dynamic, right? It reminds me of like Errol Flynn playing Robin Hood. It's such like a bold, kind of exposition. I don't know. It's weird.
So we come back to Billy's house, and Gizmo strapped to the dartboard, and they're throwing darts at him.
It's so funny.
So the mom goes upstairs to check out what's going on. She has a knife. And they throw Gizmo down through the laundry chute.
And they say, Gizmo caca, which is awesome.
So the mom sees all the hatched eggs. She answers a phone call, and is Billy warning her, but the gremlins pull the phone line out.
And they say, phone home, which is obviously a jab at E.T. The phone home, I realized this for the first time watching this movie, with how referential the Gremlins films are to pop culture. I'm not even a big fan of this Marvel character, but I would love to see Gremlins versus Deadpool, because I just think that the fourth wall breaking could be fucking delightful.
That would be pretty amazing.
Sorry, that's all. You can keep going. And also the mom uses a knife, which if you know your Deadpool lore, he uses katanas and whatnot.
So the mom hears Xmas music, Christmas music.
Keep it.
It's a problem with reading straight from my notes.
Dude, I know. The struggle is real, dog.
So she goes downstairs, and she sees a gremlin eating the cookies that she was just baking. Yum, yum.
Which I love that he's eating it from the head first. Like, that's probably how I would eat it too, but it's just so much like more severe.
And then it starts to eat out of the blender. The mom goes and turns on the blender, which was great.
Shreds his head and guts and gore everywhere. Man, that's so good.
And another gremlin comes out, and he's throwing dishes at her, and she grabs a table as a shield.
Which is awesome. I expected her to be like, I could do this all day.
And so she goes and stabs him right in the head. And then she grabs a bottle of something like Raid, and then sprays another one into the microwave.
It's actually flea and tick spray. Thank you very much.
All right.
I told you I went nuts.
He's in there, and he blows up, and the microwave dings.
So this is actually not the original cut. Originally, there was another microwave scene, which was even gorier that they had to cut down.
How could it? Well, could have been red, I guess. I don't know.
Probably.
It was pretty. I mean, as far as if gremlin exploding, it's pretty.
I love it.
gory.
It's so much liquid. It's awesome. And so she gets another knife, and so she's like dual wielding. And she sees there's a stocking that's rocking on the mantle, and so she's like, I'm gonna get you, bitch. So she cuts it open, and then a toy robot falls out of it, which Billy's way too old.
Right. He's like 25.
Yeah. He's got a beard. And then she backs up into the Christmas tree, and you see the glowing orange eyes, and she gets attacked, and it's literally trying to strangle her with the tinsel before Billy comes in. And here is your Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, Chekhov's sword. He comes in and grabs a sword and slashes a gremlin, which flies into the fireplace.
I had to rewatch it. It's just the head.
Oh, is it?
I had made a note. I was like, oh, just the head's in the fire, but he hit the whole body.
That
No,
makes sense.
the head's just so fucking huge that it flies in.
And then, so Stripe would be the last one because there was 5.
Correct.
So she killed 4, and Stripe is there, and he
Escapes out the window.
He jumps out the window. So Billy takes his mom to the doctor's house, and then he goes back home to find Gizmo in the laundry. And then they follow the gremlin tracks to the YMCA.
Yeah, I almost wanted to call, if we were going to do nicknames for the gremlins, it would have just been the Village People.
That's pretty good.
They sing, they go to the Y. I mean, it fits.
They go inside the YMCA, and they get attacked by Stripe. And then Stripe eventually...
Who jumps out of a goddamn fuse box, just crazy.
And he ends up jumping in the pool. And this was a cool scene. He starts bubbling like crazy. The lights going off.
And I like that even as it's happening, it still has a degree of novelty to it because he pinches his nose like you would doing a cannonball. And so it still has that kind of capricious attitude as something dire is happening. And then they end up going to the sheriff's station. And it's the typical boy who cried wolf scene where they're just like, oh yeah, blah, blah, we don't believe you. One visual I wanted to touch on when they're at the YMCA is Billy wielding the sword with Gizmo in the backpack. It reminded me of Lone Wolf and Cub. If you know what that reference is, great. If you don't, just do the Google search and we'll move on. Tell us what happens at the sheriff's station, Jimothy.
So he basically tells them, tries to warn them, and they just disregard him. But they're there playing with Gizmo. Like, oh, he's super cute. There's a little American flag, and he's...
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Just a doofus scene. Like, it's in so many movies. It's in your Killer Clowns. Yeah. You see it so often, and that's probably a scene that I think could have been cut. I think the whole cop thing should have been cut.
Yeah.
Because there's only 2 cops ever in the whole movie, so it's not like it's a big threat.
And they don't do anything except get owned. But so they get a phone call.
And oh, you're right. It's just the only stop motion scene in the entire movie comes out here.
Yeah, so it cuts to a scene on the street, and I think one gremlin appears, and then like an army of gremlins come walking down the street.
Yeah, it's awesome, and they're like jumping around, and it's very dynamic. It's very like, so Joe Dante had considered doing all of the gremlins in stop animation the entire time, but then it was just too costly and time consuming.
Yeah.
I think the puppets work better.
I mean, the stop motion, you could tell it's stop motion too. It just wasn't.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's good that they went puppet route, because that could have looked really bad.
And
so it cuts to the Futtermans.
Yeah, and the wife moves like the fake log brick, which is just so weird.
Gotta get it just right.
And can we talk about how the Mrs. Futterman's like the nicest person ever? Because even as he's being a dick about like the TV not working, she's like, "Oh, you have the clicker."
Yeah,
I would have been like, "Shut your ass, old man. You might be Dick Miller, but you can suck your own dick off."
So he's complaining again about a goddamn foreign TV, and the gremlins are on the roof swinging from his antenna. He's fucking up his TV. So he goes out to check. He hears the crashing sounds, and Gremlin starts his tractor, and it busts through the garage, and it goes through the house. He runs to the house. It follows him through the house, and him and his wife are basically in the corner. And what does he say? He's like, "Goddamn gremlin driving my tractor."
Yeah. Famous last words, right?
And they basically, it doesn't show it, but they basically get smashed by the tractor.
Yeah. And the fact that, so they actually come back for the sequel. So that's one of the things about the ambiguity of them not necessarily dying, which I guess is not only just for the MPAA. Because like that's the thing, the science man is not necessarily dead.
Right.
So that's one of the kind of workarounds. But there's a window behind them. So, it could happen where they just get pushed through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about that reveal where the full orchestration happens as the plow is coming out? I think that's just terrific.
Yeah, that was great.
It's one of the better
scenes. Snowplow wasn't a tractor.
Right. Well, a tractor and a snowplow are the same thing. It's just what you have on it. You're right, Jim. I just said snowplow because I had different notes than you. I appreciate you. Please move on.
I even wrote here later. So, so it goes to a guy putting in mail in a mailbox, and it gets thrown back out, and another guy comes up and tries to put it in.
Oh, no, let's talk about this. That's a fucking priest.
Oh, the priest.
The dude doesn't have the fucking decency to warn the next guy who gets his damn arm bit off.
He was shocked, okay?
Yeah.
I'd have been shocked if my mail got spit back out at me.
I bet you if it was a little boy putting mail in there, he would have taken care of him.
We went there.
I did.
So the next is the gremlin fucking with the street light, like junction box, like
so good,
mixing the wires, and it turns all the lights all green.
You don't even have to see the cars crash. You just hear the sound, and it works so well.
No, that was good. It would have been too much if it like cut to like, oh, let's show the cars crash.
Exactly.
And so now they're back at the sheriff's, and Gizmo's being cute, and this is where the sheriffs get a call,
thus substantiating everything that Billy has just said.
Right. Well, they still don't believe him, but it's about the Futtermans, and there's a snowplow accident. So they basically just tell Billy to go home, take your little mythical creature with you.
Yeah. The fact that they just dismiss it all. And then the cops are immediately doofuses as they're going out in the town anyway. So, I mean, I kind of like the fact that it's just like, these guys are practically irredeemable. They're just too fucking stupid to live. But there is a great little car flip that comes out of them. So I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Probably one of the more expensive parts of this movie when you think about it.
Yeah. But, talking about when cutting time down.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it, everything about the sheriffs could have been cut, and that would have been, it would have fixed a lot of the timing issue.
All you need to see is just a car with them dead. That's all you needed for that.
Right. So that
that's 10 minutes.
There's no police here to help us.
Yeah, because you only ever see the 2 police in the entire town anyway.
So the next scene is Stripe is at Crazy Bitch Deagle house.
I love it so much.
She's like crazy cat lady, right? She's coming down her stairs in her little motorized chair.
Did you notice that all of her cats are named after currency?
There was one. I can't remember what she was calling it.
It don't matter that much.
Whatever. But she hears carolers outside. And she such a curmudgeon that she grabs a thing of water.
Good thing she doesn't do it.
Oh, I know. She grabs a pitcher of water or something, and she's just gonna throw it as she opens the door. She's just gonna drench these carolers.
Yep.
Could you imagine if somebody actually did that?
Yeah, I can, for sure. You hear stories about that all the time. One thing that I thought was funny, the sign for the real estate company says that basically it's only open for 45 minutes a day because it's from 10:30 to 11:15. So she is like such an evil person. She's just magnificent. And then they mess up her electric stair climber and thus shoot her out of the window into the street. And that's when the cops are like, "Oh, it's Miss Deagle." And then they see the guy who's Santa Claus. "Oh, it's Santa. I play Santa every year." And then you have the gremlin that bites the brake line, and that whole situation happens. Now on the radio, you have Rockin' Ricky, and he's there like DJ. You even see like a sign for it in the background at one point, and he's talking about like, "Oh, they're attacking, whatever." And later on in the movie, if you listen, he talks about turning the hoses onto the things that are attacking. And so that would have been a great premise for a sequel just right there of like what happens to Rockin' Ricky.
I do remember him talking about like how they defended them or something. Like he's like, "But we're still on here."
Yeah.
So the sheriffs drive off with Santa being eaten or attacked by the gremlins. And they're they just drive off.
And it serves them right. They die, turned it over in a car because they didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
And then you end up at Dory's bar. Here's a question for you, Jim. What is a key ingredient in beer? Is it water? Does water make you wet? They're all drinking a lot of beer and they're not just erupting out the mouth.
Does snow? I mean,
if they're reptilian, wouldn't they be cold-blooded and thus not heating the snow?
I mean, it's just water. It's just in a different phase.
Well, so is vapor. Oh, shit, dog. Yeah, these rules kind of suck, don't they? But you have Kate serving the drinks. You get the flasher gremlin. You get the gremlin whose belly is filling up from drinking out of the tap, which is done with Froyo in the sequel. You got the transvestite gremlin with Stripe. You got a gremlin who's using puppets on his hands, so it's a puppet with a puppet. I mean, that's Inception before Inception happened. You got one who puts his finger in a socket and smoke comes out of his ears. You got one that goes, and then when Kate goes to light one of their cigarettes, he gets scared of the fire and falls down, so she uses the Polaroid and flashes them, thus getting revenge for the flasher flashing her and flashes her way out of there. Billy pulls up, does a little hocus pocus by putting his headlights through the front window. She gets in the car doesn't start.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to run the streets. How embarrassing.
So they're running through the streets and the town is just in chaos. They end up hiding in the bank.
Oh, can I add one quick thing about the bar? Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, who you might recall were the names or the voices of Optimus Prime and Megatron, do voices of the drunk gremlins in the bar, and they got into character by drinking Budweiser.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The bar scene is just so much chaos and there's just so much going on. But I think it's my favorite part just because how long and how many.
There's so many gags.
How many gags. Yeah. And I love the one that was just sitting at the table smoking with the hat on.
Yeah.
Where the puppet one comes up to him and is just like fucking with him. He pulls a mallet out of from under the table.
It's so weird and silly. And like basically that scene is what the sequel is. It's just everything is just so absurd and it's just delightful. And it's just chaos. And this one I like more because they're interacting with each other. I think that the theater has some good gags, but they're all looking in one direction.
Right.
So I would love to watch just them in the wild interacting with one another. Like that's so much more interesting to me than them dealing with people, because the dynamics of like, a superiority and everything, because they're all clearly beholden to Stripe, who's using a gun at one point and everything. He's clearly in charge, but then they're still like fucking with him and playing games, and there's still like the transvestite gremlin and stuff. It's just, yeah, I love it. So Billy says, "They're gremlins, Kate, just like Mr. Futterman said." And she does the monologue that we talked about. And then when they go to the theater, because all the gremlins have disappeared while they were in the bank, you can see The Howling is being advertised, which obviously is a Joe Dante film. There's also references to E.T., yada, yada. So when they go in, they see that all the gremlins are watching Snow White, which is hilarious. They're singing, they're dancing, they love it. And so Kate strangely knows where the boiler room is.
She probably worked there.
Yeah, at the rate she's going. So all of the gremlins are watching. Stripe wants candy because he goes to the snack bar and it's empty. So he escapes.
I love as he's getting out of his chair to go, the other gremlin next to him leans over and goes, "Milk duds."
Awesome. I didn't catch that. So he goes across the street. They light a rag on fire. They're going to blow up the whole thing. And so the reel breaks as they're behind the screen. So they get silhouetted and the gremlins see them. And so one fun gag, kind of like the stop motion, to show the gremlins being more dynamic and not just puppets, they use animation cells and they project that so it looks like there's a bunch of gremlins jumping and chasing at them. Then they start tearing through.
The tearing was awesome.
It's super great. And then there's the explosion, which is great. And that's how all of them die, except for Stripe.
Because he was getting milk duds.
And red vines, which I am a fan of.
Mm-hmm. After the theater blows up, so they see him across the street getting the candy. Billy's warning, like, if he gets to the water, it's going to start all over. And this is where they kiss.
It's so awkward. He's just like rushing her off and not a fan.
It just, I mean, they spend some time together, but there's just nothing there.
No chemistry. I don't down with this relationship. She should have dated Judge Reinhold. One thing I wanted to point out, there is a record called the Figure Control Record, which helps you lose weight with no exercise, like literally a hypnotism record that's on sale in the department store they're in, by Dr. Dante. I think that's a nod to Joe Dante, but I couldn't be sure.
It feels, I mean, a lot of the stuff, even everything you see in the background, everything seems very deliberate in this movie.
Even down to what toys, like when Stripe is hiding amongst the toys while Billy's like running through. Oh, Billy! He pops out and one of the toys is an E.T. E.T. does that same gag. Like, you're talking down to the minutia, which is crazy to show how deliberate this movie was. And this isn't planned over a decade or anything.
Right. I just don't see how that could be a coincidence.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're in the department store and Kate, or Fast Times, takes Gizmo and Billy goes after Stripe with a baseball bat and he gets ambushed by him basically. He has some saw blades thrown at him and then Stripe rides away in a tricycle.
Which is so adorable. Again, it's just that silly nonsense.
It was kind of out of nowhere. It was awesome. And
he shoots the fucker with a goddamn crossbow. How dope is that?
Yeah, he gets ambushed again. And yeah, he gets shot in the arm with a little crossbow. And then as he's on the ground, he hears a chainsaw whirring. And he basically, Stripe charges Billy with a chainsaw. And then Billy fins, it's the worst chainsaw ever made because Billy fins it off with a wooden bat.
Yeah. And it does look a little precarious when it cuts back to him, but it's still a wooden bat.
Right.
But what's awesome is, so Kate turns on the electricity and the lights freak out Stripe. And so the chainsaw hits the ground and I love that it drags him away. Such a great visual gag.
And while this is going on, Gizmo's driving around in an RC car.
It's pink.
It's a pink RC car.
And you hear the voiceover from the movie that he was watching when he's watching the guy in the car.
Where he goes,
who needs the dame or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it shows like this is paying off. This whole stupid idea of him being taught to watch TV.
Right.
So then the dad pulls into town. That's where you get the Rock and Ricky talking about everything. And then Gizmo jumps the car off of a shovel as Stripe is standing at the fountain with his finger in the dike. He pulls down the shade. The light hits him directly. He then falls and crumples in. And then he pops back up and falls out for that whole like last jump scare, which is so iconic in horror films. And this effect is so gnarly, dude. It looks so good. And then the best part is when he crumples and his skeleton just like melts. It's so good. That's like, obviously it's Slay of the Game or whatever, if we still even do that on this show, but it just looks so good. Like, practical effects rule so hard.
Even before he jumped out, when he was melting up from the light and he's bubbling and smoking, it was so well done. So the dad and Barney and Katie show up after this. So they showed up before he jumped out, and then Billy goes to the fountain and he jumps out and melts. And then they're all back home. and the news is on, and there's unexplained incidents in the small town, explosions and stuff.
But since there's no gremlins left because they've been blown up or melted, they can't prove it. And so Billy's got his arm in a sling, and they're sitting there, and then boom, Mr. Wing is standing there in their house. And they're like, excuse me, quote, Oriental, end quote. I still can't believe that's in the book. That's not me saying it. That's George Jipe, everyone. Let's move on. But I love that he dramatically holds out his hand and drops the money. Like, I don't need your stinky capitalist filth.
It was all like crumpled up too.
Yeah. It's dirty. He wiped his asshole with it. And so basically he's like, I told you fuckheads that this is a lot of responsibility and you didn't listen to me. And so as he tries to apologize to Mr. Wing, he offers him the smokeless ashtray, which he knows about because the guy tried to sell it to him from the same gas station. And I love that he's like indignant that they tried to show Gizmo TV because, again, that plays hugely in the second one, which takes place largely in a film studio.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. So as he's walking off into the matte painting or the Bible, which is so sad, and he does the woof, bye woof woof. My daughter calls Darla woof woof. It's so cute. So he's walking off into one of the matte paintings in the film, and it's a beautiful matte painting, but apparently there was a glitch at one point when they were doing it, and he just disappeared. And they considered keeping it, but then they left it where he just continues walking.
I should have done that.
I think it'd be so good. Like, if adding to the mysticism, the whole dragons and pandas fucking or whatever Joe Dante said.
So it ended on the same voiceover from the dad. Not the same voiceover, but the same type of voiceover.
Yeah. And this one is so good. This is the moral of the story.
Right. Well, so he talks about, he's like, when your electronics fail, before you call a repairman, turn on all your lights as there might just be gremlins in your house.
So good.
And that's how it ends.
I love this movie.
It was good.
It tells you how much I love the second one when I'm like, you and I are the only guys in the room. The reigning and defending classic champion is Alien. I'm fully willing to remove Alien to put Gremlins in its place.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think that the most of our viewing audience would agree with you, so I'm fine to keep it. But that's how much I love this movie. It hits so many of the boxes for me.
I do. I just, the practical effects of the Gremlins are just super charming. And just everything about it, just the little voice comedy and the one-liners, because that's all they do is one-liners, are just so perfect.
It's visual one-liners too. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because everything is so deliberate because they had to create this shit. It's not like they had a warehouse full of gremlins that already did this, or even the armatures inside that did this. They had to make every single step of it to do this. It's so rad.
Yeah, definitely a classic.
100%. Without a doubt, if you haven't seen it, you have to. And there are two options that we have moving forward from here. Jim hasn't seen a new batch. Brian hasn't seen a new batch. So we can do a full episode, which I'm dying to do because, like I said, I love that one. Or we can do a commentary track. So if you're listening to this, please let us know, slasherspod@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Instagram at @slasherspod, on the Slasher app at @slasherspod, Horror Amino @slasherspod, Twitter @slasherspod. Am I getting redundant? Because it's basically always @slasherspod, except for YouTube, which is @slasherspodcast. My point being, let us know which one you want, because I could definitely see an argument for a full episode or just a commentary. I don't think we should do both. I could do both, but I might literally bore my co-hosts to death.
I think that would be excessive.
Yeah, I think it would do. I don't want to end up like our friends over at Spook House who now hate the Halloween franchise, having done every single one and a recap episode.
Oh, God.
Yeah. God bless you, boys. You soldiered through. Jim, do you have any closing remarks?
Just check out Gremlins if you haven't. It's super fun.
And if there's any of the Gremlins knockoffs that we talked about that you'd like us to do, please let us know. Jim, do you want to hit us with that last action line, my friend?
Enjoy fuckboy time.
Beep, beep. And for Chad, for Brian, for myself, I'd like to thank everybody who goes out there, rates and subscribes and does everything. Our Patreon patrons, we love you so much. My name is Jake, reminding you to go out there and do something you love. And remember that all work and no power play makes Jack a dull boy.